Coming up next on Public Access TV is Fan to Fan, the book game, where we look at the game of publishing books. Today my guest is multi-honored Framingham-based children's author Farhana Zia, whose specialty is the culture of India, told through both picture and chapter books. Stay tuned. This might take you to India and may even make you feel younger. Welcome to Fan, the book game version. Hi, I'm your host, Dave Hornfischer. I'm a book fan, and I'm excited to look at the game of book publishing, where we will talk with people who got their book ideas into print. Today, my guest is Farhana Zia, a Framingham-based author of multi-award-winning children's books about growing up as told through girls growing up in India. Farhana, welcome to Fan, the book game.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here, David. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. I've known you for a long time as a friend, and it's great to have you on the show here and to hear about your experience in publishing these children's books. But before we get to the books, why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself? About growing up? You grew up in India.
I did. I was born in a city called Hyderabad, India. And then I was married in 1967, and my husband was already here. And so after I was married in October, in a month or so, I joined him. So I've been here since 1967. We had 2 children. I saw them grow up. Along the way, I went to do my graduate work in education. Then I transitioned into being a teacher. And I retired after 26 years of teaching.
Where did you teach?
I started in Framingham, believe it or not.
I can believe that.
In Framingham, and then I moved to Northborough.
Okay.
As a full-time elementary school teacher. I did 4th grade and 5th grade, and I'm telling you, those were the best years of my life. My husband says, you're a person of very little passion. He's very passionate about sports. And I'm a good sport. I go along with him, skiing or whatnot. But my passion lay in teaching. That was my passion. And it was very consistent for about 25 years. And then it was time to step down.
Okay. And your books are children's books. They're about children's stories.
Yes.
When did you get the idea to do a series of children's books? Did you have a series in mind to begin with, or were you just thinking of doing one book? What drove you to become an author?
I guess nostalgia, nostalgia. I was thrilled to be here. Everybody loves to come to America, or to England for that matter. I was very young, so coming to America was a big deal. But after the first allure of being in a Western country sort of wore out, I started to reminisce about the things that I left behind. And David, your senses you remember, especially the sense of smell, stays for a very, very long time. So anyway, memories of sights and sounds and tastes, those were sort of coming up, welling up, and they needed to be acknowledged. And I started to write them down, but I didn't have any intention of doing anything formal with it. That was all personal rendition of memories.
Right.
But along the way, I think it sort of transitioned into something more formal.
And then you had your own 2 children, and
we had 2 children. They went to school in Framingham, grew up, and now they're all grown up. My son is in Texas, my daughter lives in New Jersey, and I'm a grandmother 3 times over.
But their growing up experience in America was a lot different than your growing up experience in India, right?
Yes.
Was that behind some of
Yes.
were you teaching when you started doing started writing books?
Actually, I was teaching at that time. I was. So I gained a lot from my teaching experience. Being in the world of children was very helpful in getting, going with writing about children per se. Yeah.
So you then decided to do a book, and your first book was?
Hot Roti for Dadaji.
Hot roti.
Roti. Roti is a bread. It's an Indian flatbread.
Okay.
And that was my first book that was published.
Had you made roti for your children at home?
I was not a good roti maker.
No.
Actually, and I'm still not a good roti maker. But like I said, book writing is very much like roti making. You need a lot of practice doing it.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, writing I don't know how far back I want to go, but I just wanted to prove myself that I could write something, David, and that's what it was. It was like a challenge. Can I do this?
Right.
And the idea just popped into my head. I was walking in my neighborhood and I was asking myself, what can I write about that will be authentic in a lot of ways?
Right.
And then immediately, food is authentic, family is authentic.
Yes.
So I thought about food. I thought about family. My grandmother came to my mind, storytelling. So those three elements, by the time I'd finished my walk in my neighborhood, I had the idea to write something down.
And but then this was going to be more or less a picture book, right?
This was going to be a picture book.
And so you had to find somebody to do the pictures because you're not a
I'm not an artist. I'm not an illustrator. But luckily, it was my publisher, and my publisher for the book is Lee and Low, and they were responsible for finding the illustrator.
How did you find them, the publisher?
I had to find myself an agent.
Yes. Okay.
I had to find an agent because prior to that, I was just doing cold calls back in. This is pre-email time, so it was generally snail mail.
So what year was this? 1990s?
1990s, yes, 1990s. But then along the way, I did reach out to several agents.
Locally here in Massachusetts?
No, she was based in New York.
Oh, really? Okay.
She was based in New York, the agent who did Hot Hot Roti. And once she liked what I had to say, then it was her responsibility. It's sort of, you kind of take a back seat at that point, and it's up to her. And it was not a very lengthy process. She was able to sell it very quickly.
And so you had the idea, and you didn't have the book written at that point, did you?
I had the idea, then I worked on the manuscript. It took, I would say, about 6 months for me to get something to gel in my head and to have something reasonable enough to send to her. And, like I said...
there's an image on the screen there of one of the images from the book.
Yes.
How do elephants fit into roti?
Someone called it a tall tale, which is interesting. I hadn't thought about it. But basically, it's a book about family, and family is important to me. Family features in a lot of my books. So here's a set of grandparents. Dadaji is the grandfather and Dadima is the grandmother, and they have come to stay with the character who's Anil, who's a little boy of Indian heritage. He's an American. And the grandfather is a great storyteller. And he tells stories about his youth, and it's all fantasized. And so now, now Dadaji is kind of old and getting weak, and Anil wants to make bread, the roti, so his grandfather can regain his powers. And one of the things that Dadaji is able to do when he is young, having eaten the roti, is spin 3 elephants by their tails. That's one of the wonderful feats he's able to do amongst a couple others.
It takes a lot of imagination, I think, and to make a child book interesting for...
Yeah, it is, because kids are hard to please, and they've got so much entertainment around them, and to keep them hooked.
Did you test your stories on your own children?
My own children, yes, I did.
And they liked it?
Yes.
Those would be the toughest critics, I would think.
I think
Ma,
so.
what are you doing?
I know,
you get that?
I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I could just hear my kids saying something like that to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that was book 1, and that was a picture book, and then book 2. These next couple books were chapter books, as you call them.
The Garden of My Iman, strangely enough, started off as a picture book idea. And when I sent it out to a publisher, I don't remember who it was, and they said they would like to see a larger story. And around this time, Dave, 9/11 had happened, and there was a lot going on, because the book is about a young Muslim American girl who all of a sudden is very tentative because people around her very suspicious of Muslims at that time. So basically, it's about her questioning, who am I? What is my identity? And then she finds a young newcomer at her school who is also the second Muslim girl who has a hijab.
Okay.
So she is more Muslim looking. And the main character now is a little bit nervous. How are others going to perceive me?
Okay.
You know, and so the book is about her coming to terms with her identity and actually feeling good about herself.
Yeah, and these sort of a coming to life story
Coming
and
of age,
and a coming of age,
story.
yeah,
Exactly,
and
exactly. Yes.
and that story would be kind of play with across all kinds of cultures, even I would
A
think.
very universal story,
Yeah,
you know, because I do touch upon little issues of bullying and boyfriends and, you know,
Right.
things happening in the family. It's a joint family system. Again, I really like to celebrate that. So in Alia's family, there's the great-grandmother, there's a grandmother, there's a mother and Alia, so 4 generations living together in this house. When the setting is somewhere in the Midwest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I had certain people in mind that I kind of modeled this story around. It's fictionalized, but a lot of little truths along the way. But it was a good story to write.
And that probably took a lot longer to put together as a chapter book versus
It took me a while. It took me a while because I do well with brevity. That's why I'm better with picture books. But you know, this was good because there was a lot to say, basically. And so it was a good journey.
And then you did another picture book. Chapter book.
I did another chapter book, which truthfully, that was, if it were to be published, it ought to have been my first book, because remember I was talking about my reminiscence and my memories and how they were coming together. A lot of those are in that book, you know, and it is dedicated to someone actually in India who was of service to me.
Okay.
The child of spring, the main character is Basanta.
Okay.
She was a real life person who was a servant in my household. And so she inspired me to write about those times and those days and that story. And so that's how that came about.
And then this was how many? And then by this point, you were with a different publisher, and
by this point, I was with a different publisher. Hot Roti was done by Lee and Low, and then the others were done by Peachtree. They're based out of Georgia, Atlanta. Yeah, so the rest of them.
And your agent and your agent then found the publisher.
My agent, actually, yes.
What was there a bit of a? So switching from picture books to chapter books. Was that sort of a structural change with the agent then deciding that you needed a different kind of publisher to do that?
Yeah, well, I think so, and that was the reason I moved to a different publisher, because she specialized in chapter books as well as in picture books.
Okay.
So that's what happened, but the structural change more had to happen inside my mind to switch over from writing a picture book to a longer book, and I didn't think it was my forte, but like anything else, you have to discover yourself, you know, through your work and as things unfold. And
so you had these 3 books done now. Is it almost 2,000 now, or you?
Now it's about to, well, actually Hot Roti was 2011.
Oh, okay.
And then every 2 years is when I spit out another book.
Okay, so then you got to back to doing picture books.
Then I went
with
back
Lolly.
to Lolly, little Lolly, yes, and that's been a lot of fun. Lolly's Feather was the first one, and then Lolly's Flip Flop that came out just a couple of months ago. Again, it's about childhood, it's about exuberance, it's universal, you know, universal.
So
themes.
Lolly finds a feather.
Lolly finds a feather. Lolly knows to do a lot with very little.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that was the message. We don't need to have a lot
to
do. You know, we can do a lot with a little. And she's a poor child, and she finds a little very ordinary feather, and everyone scoffs at that feather. Her bird friends, all the animals, characters are
there's
animals.
a nice picture there of the birds looking at
They
the feather.
don't think get special because the peacock's got a
They
special
have a lot of
feathers, so
feathers
one is-
themselves, right?
Exactly. And then Lali says, well, I'll show you what I can do. And so basically it's about her creative imagination. How
Okay.
she takes a very ordinary thing and makes it special, and how she brings everybody around to her way of thinking.
And these again are
And
back
then-
for younger kids, probably the picture
These are
books. right?
picture books, and the ages would be anywhere from 5 to even 10 or 11
Okay,
years old.
sort of a kind of
You know,
almost
it's a
the first
wide
book for a
range.
kid to read. I mean, I can still
Yes.
think back to one of the first books I had as a kid, even.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
yeah.
think we were talking before about how that relates to the next book about the flip-flop story.
About the flip-flops,
Oh.
exactly. I had actually several books in mind, wanted very much to make it a series, but I think we just stopped with the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's the message there is about hard work. You know,
Uh-huh.
she goes out and she earns a little money so she can do something nice for herself, and along the way her animal friends make requests of her, and it's about decision making and trying to do the right thing. So
This is the flip-flop story.
this is the flip-flop story.
So she decides to buy some flip-flops.
For herself,
And
but
then-
then she also is mindful of the fact that there are expectations of her that her friends have placed on her, and she doesn't want to not be attentive to those needs.
Like, why would she go out and spend her money on her own self when there were
Right.
bigger needs in the world,
Right,
maybe?
right, maybe, maybe.
Or
maybe.
even bigger needs in her
maybe.
own life. Yeah.
Exactly. It's about
Yeah.
sending out those little messages into the world without sounding didactic,
Yeah.
you know, in subtle kind of ways, and hopefully the children pick up on those
I still remember
messages.
my first children's book about a little boy who had a nickel, and he was trying to remember what should I do with it? Should I buy cookies or an ice cream? It was very self-focused. This was in the 50s. I don't think I think kids today are probably taught to look toward more socially responsible ways of spending their money. And this poor girl wants to buy
Probably right.
flip-flops. I mean,
Because her
what a
feet are
tragedy.
hurting. She's got bare feet.
Yeah.
She doesn't have shoes. She's poor. She's walking on this prickly path, and she just wants to be comfortable, and that's how
Okay.
it starts.
Oh, uh-huh.
And that's how the story ends, that she's pleased herself through her own hard work,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also made her friends.
It's such a wonderful universal theme.
Yes.
I just there's just so much you can do with a
Yes.
children's book. I mean, even like the Dr. Seuss book. I think I've got one of his
Oh,
pictures in my
that's
book in
amazing.
the back
That's
of it.
amazing.
Yeah.
I just marvel at the creativity of some of our authors that are out there, who are evergreen. Evergreen.
Yeah,
I mean, people, kids still. I read those books to my children, Dave, all the Dr. Seuss books.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with the one that you talked about the little kid wanting to spend the money.
Oh, yeah, well, that was a 1950s book. You
Okay,
can't find that
okay.
anymore now.
Yeah. But all of the Dr. Seuss books,
Yeah.
just a brilliant, and all of the, what do you call, the Mo Willems, the Piggy and the Elephant books,
Okay, yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
Well, you can do so much with imagination. I mean, as I flip through your books there, the colors and the pictures of the artists, and
Yes.
I mean, getting an artist to work with you have to find an artist that kind of understands this too, don't you?
It's true. I was a
Yeah.
little nervous when they found this brilliant young man, Ken Min, who did Hot Hot Roti for Dadaji,
Mm-hmm.
and he is a Korean American. He lives in Los Angeles, and I wasn't allowed to contact him. And I don't know what the thinking is, but as a first-time author that I was at that point, the message that was given to me was that, we know what we're doing, you stay out of it. But I was curious because he was a Korean American, and I wanted somebody.
What's he going to know? How's
What
he
is
going to
gonna
relate
know?
to a
So I
story
did
of a
reach out
child
to
from
him, and I said,
India?
Ken, I'm just saying hi to you. And he sensed that I was a little anxious, and he said, don't worry, I'm doing my research. I'm walking around in the Indian neighborhoods, he said.
Well, that's
But I
great.
must say, the way he has portrayed, I do remember I had sent to my publisher a couple of pictures of what I wanted the characters to look like.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So based on that, I think he did a brilliant job.
Uh-huh.
And the way he interpreted parts of the story, I think he was,
I
very
still
good.
now you taught fourth grade,
yes.
and so so your children in these books, the stories are younger kids.
Yes, they are.
But
Yes,
you
they
were
are.
able to the chapter books were more of like the kids you had in school maybe. You
True.
probably had them
But
in
you'd be
mind.
surprised.
Yeah.
Children are not that hard to please as far as books go, and they receive picture books very well. There are lots of picture books that are targeted primarily for the older grades as well,
Yeah.
with more text and more
Okay.
content.
Yeah. Graphic novels even are becoming very popular.
Huge.
Yeah.
Those are the most
One of my son's military books came out in a graphic novel.
Yes.
Even. And,
Yes.
And now, with the book publishing business is going kind of away from hardcover books that you hold in your hand to online books. Are these books available online where you can read them on a Kindle or
some of
something
them
like
are
that?
available on Kindle. Yes, some of them. I believe The Garden of My Iman is available on Kindle, and Hot Roti for Dadaji as well. And I did an audio recording for Lali's Feather
Oh, really?
Recently. So that should be out soon.
And so the pictures would then go along with the audio.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Yes. So that
Well,
was
I mean,
exciting.
today's kids are just so technologically strong. I mean, they're probably all have their little Kindles in their hand.
that's right.
They'd probably rather read this book on that than they would to
Probably.
hold a book in your hand.
But you wish that they would also love to hold a book.
Wouldn't you? I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, because my best memories of being in a library, even Framingham Library, I just loved there just to browse and to feel the books.
So, what kind of publicity have you done with? Has your publisher and your agent and all that help you get
They do,
publicity
Dave,
for
a
this?
little bit. They will point me to, if they know of a author appearance opportunities, they let me know if there's a conference that is local. They will let me know. I went to Sturbridge not too long ago. I may go to Boston in October. So they do. They do. And remember, Dave, I am at an age where I'm not doing as much travel, so I'm okay. I do a lot of school visits.
Oh, really?
That has been really gratifying, and I did
that must
3
be
this year. Because my books are very interactive. There's a lot to share with the children as far as the culture goes.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of material, so I go with my big bins filled with artifacts that come directly from my stories.
Okay.
And so I, have an opportunity to share that and do a little bit of reading. So that has given me a lot of pleasure.
And the feedback that you must get from the kids in
Right
schools
away.
must
Right
even give you
away.
ideas for future
Exact-
books and make you think,
that
well,
too. Plus, the beauty of it is that when you see a child from the same background or heritage or culture, and you see their eyes light up, they see themselves, they recognize themselves, that is a huge thing for them, so that is very gratifying. For instance, the Garden of My Iman, if you see a little Muslim kid with a hijab sitting in the audience at school, and she says, oh, wow, there's a book about someone like me, that is a huge plus.
oh, it is.
For me.
And that also sends a message to the other kids around her, too,
Yes.
in the way that they may be reacting to her even. And
I'm believing that the children who are growing up are much more accepting than you and I were growing up.
Oh, for sure.
And it's just the world has changed, hopefully for the right direction, and hopefully people like me and authors who can put out the message that get to know each other,
Right.
find out about each other.
Such a
So
message.
basically,
the world
that's
needs
what-
to hear that.
Hopefully, that's what books do in a fun sort of a way.
And
fun
starting
sort of
getting that message to kids when they're 4 or 10
they're
or
little.
12 or whatever
Yes,
is probably
it's
where
important. It's important because, believe it or not, that's when ideas and ideologies start to set in. So if you can sort of tweak that a little bit, I think why not?
So now I know you're probably modest about this, but you won a couple of major awards for some of these books. So.
I was lucky. I was recognized for Hot Roti. Actually, each one of them was mentioned in one way or the other. Lali's Flip Flops is too new, so I can't claim anything. But other than those 2 books, yes, I would say yes. Yeah.
And so these have sold quite a few. You told me the sales on what was it? The Roti book was one of them you told me had sold over 30,000 books already.
38. I was curious. I had not heard. I mean, I should have kept track, I guess, but I did not know where to look for it. So I did write to my publisher. I was curious. And they said it was 38,000 copies.
Are these
had been
mostly,
sold.
are these available outside the U.S. too? Or?
Yes, they are.
Really?
They are sold on Amazon.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's Amazon everywhere. So it's
Right.
available Amazon
Yeah.
India and England and Australia. I know when I Google them, I do see that, they do show up in different
Really?
locales around
Yeah.
the world. Yes.
Well, the
yes,
message is
yes.
so universal. I'm not surprised, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
I mean,
yes.
because so few books sell over 10,000 even. I mean, that's quite an honor to have that well. And once it's, I imagine it kind of builds too. So in terms of where you're going from here, do you the flip-flop ones just came out, you said, in the last
Yes.
year?
We have another one that is in Beyond Conversation. It has been accepted by my same publisher, and now we're working on illustrations on that one. And I have another one that I've sent to my other publisher, the Hot Hot Roti publisher, because I would like to see another Anil and Dadaji's story. I'm waiting to hear back. I've left my laptop open at home. I'm writing another one. So it's good for retirement, Dave.
Yeah,
It gives me things to do.
No, just hearing you talk
basically.
about this, you have such a sense of both pleasant and energy, and I think it takes both. I mean, you have a pleasant personality to make a story believable, I think, and yet an energy to kind of make it interesting and exciting. And well, I just wonder, having done these books, would you have any messages for other people who happen to be watching this in TV land, who have a story that they want to tell?
Yeah, I don't have anything creative other than just do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
It's like buying a lottery ticket. If you don't buy it, you will never get it, right?
Yeah.
I've always wanted that $1 billion, but I've never got out and bought that ticket, so I know my odds are zero. No, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it, and then just leave it.
So what are a couple of lessons that you learned that you wish you knew different when you started? I mean, have you said, I wish I did this different on the first? Do you have any?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think my personality is such that everything happened on track for me. It happened when it was supposed to happen, and for now, it's just the challenge of keeping it going. Keeping that creative juice going. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I just sit back and wait for it.
It's like the line
for the
that,
right time.
everything will, everything has its time, and if it hasn't done it, the time hasn't come yet.
It falls in place. But I'm not complacent.
No, you're
still,
persistent.
My ideas.
Right.
I'm still searching for that, looking for that idea.
Well, unfortunately, as I warned you before, this half hour just flies by. You've been a great guest, and I hope you've inspired a lot of other people who have book ideas out there to do it. And I'm curious about this roti business. I've got to find a place to have that.
Oh, should I have said that?
What's that, roti?
I just gave out my address.
Oh, no, never mind.
You always come to my house. You know that.
Yeah. So are there restaurants where you can get good Indian food like this around here?
No, there's several restaurants.
Yeah, okay,
there's several restaurants.
Well,
yes.
okay. So after you go and get that, go out and buy one of these books. Read it to your kids, even whether you're from India or not. I think the messages here are universal. And come back and watch Fan to Fan. The book game. This is a kind of a different twist on the show that I've been doing before. And we're on public access TV in Framingham on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, not on Wednesday. And Saturday morning, we're on at 8:30 during the week. The show's a lot of fun, and we're going to be, over the course of the next years ahead, weeks ahead, whatever, talking with a lot of other authors. And Farhana, you were a great guest today. Thank you so much for coming on. I thank you to the crew at AFTV in this beautiful studio for putting this together, and it's a lot of fun, and so check it out.